let us assume that this is correct. This was not misleading. If you called and verified that she was working there, then she didn't fill out a false application. She may have changed her jobs later. And she did, in fact, have this 1998 Mustang. So why is this false?
Social Security number is wrong.
Oh, you're full of baloney. You're a smart guy.
Okay, I have...
You're a smart guy. What difference does it make if the Social Security number was wrong? What substantive difference does it make? She gave you her name, she gave you her address, how much rent she was paying, where she was working, how much she was earning. You called and verified where she was working. She did, in fact, have the car at the time. So your defense to me initially, at least in your answer, Mr. Strickland, was that she lied initially in her application. I don't see any lies here.
Okay, could I continue then my...
And do it fast, sir.
Okay, soon after she moved in, like I said, the agency said that we signed the agreement, and however, when they had told me that she wasn't capable of paying it, I went to her, and as I say, we talked about this, and at the time the guy came out, he says, we are going to pay it. Then they had 3 dogs there. They had a bird.
I got 3 dogs and a bird. Yeah, go ahead.
And I said, shh. And I told him, in no uncertain terms, I said, because you are breaking the lease, you know, I have to charge you damages on a monthly basis, and that's going to be $451 plus the water, trash, and everything else. And she agreed to do that.
That's not true, Your Honor.
Doesn't make any difference, sir. Sir, you know that the rules state, the contract you signed with U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development are clearly specified that you are not permitted to charge her any more money. Now, if, Mr. Strickland, you say to me that she was going to pay you $219 and that you had an agreement with her boyfriend and you could establish that he was living there, that you had an additional agreement, that he was an additional tenant in that property, I may say, maybe. But you knew that you were breaking the law by overcharging her. You knew that. The fact that she shouldn't be receiving this money to begin with irritates me as a taxpayer. Big time. Big time. Because she says, well, they just transferred from New Orleans to where I'm living.
They did.
Well, she's a little bit smarter than that, Your Honor.
That's not true.
Listen to me. She's very smart. She's got the system worked out fine. She's got the boyfriend who lives there. The 2 of them work, right? And the total income that they have, on their total joint incomes, they pay rent of $219 a month. And at the same time, I'm sure he has a car. She's driving around in a new Mustang, right? Taxpayers are footing the rest of the bill, $580 a month for her rent that we're paying as taxpayers. So believe me, I understand that she's got it down pat, but you broke the rules. And unfortunately, as unfair as it may sound to me as a taxpayer, you are responsible for this $5,000, which is the maximum that I can award her because she actually overpaid over $7,000 in rent. So I have no choice, sir, but to enter a judgment for the plaintiff for the amount of $5,000. And I want to tell you something. It breaks my heart. Thank you.
Parties are excused. You may step out.
29-year-old machinist Daniel McMahon is suing his former live-in girlfriend, 34-year-old store manager Michelle McCartney, for half the deposit on an apartment and the return of his furniture. Michelle is countersuing for Daniel's share of their living expenses.
Order. All rise. Your Honor, this is case number 206 on the calendar in the matter of McMahon versus McCarthy. Parties have been sworn in. Judge, you may be seated. Have seats, please.
Mr. McMahon, according to the complaint that I read, you and the defendant leased an apartment to live together. When you moved into the apartment, you put down half the security deposit. You also purchased some old furniture together. When you separated, you did not receive your security deposit back, nor the value of half the furniture that you purchased. That's what you want.
That's
right?
Correct, Your Honor.
The defendant says this is pretty much a joke because you really owe her money and she has a counterclaim.
Mm-hmm.
When did you lease this apartment?
I believe it was in July of '98, June or July.
And how long did you live together?
On and off for probably a year and a half.
When did you finally separate?
About probably 5 months ago, permanently.
And how long did you actually live in the apartment?
I actually lived in the apartment full-time for approximately 2 months before I got thrown out the first time.
And then you moved back.
And then I moved back.
Well, so let's have all the months together that you actually lived there.
Probably 4 months straight, on and off for probably a year and a half.
And how much was your security deposit that you put down?
$150.
Now, tell me about this furniture that you purchased together.
First, we bought a washer and dryer. I paid $75. She paid $75.
Okay. What's next?
The next is the furniture, which her aunt was selling, and again, we each paid $75
No,
for the
we
furniture.
did not.
You'll have your
That's
chance.
wrong, Your
You'll have
Honor.
your chance. So that is $275 and $150, $425. How did you pay your half of the rent, which comes to her counterclaim?
With a check.
With checks.
I wrote my checks out to her.
Let me see them.
I don't have them. She packed all my stuff up.
He packed it all himself.
Mr. McMahon.
That's not true.
See, the problem is, she says that you lived together a total of 6 months. You say 4 months. The defendant says that you only paid rent for 2 of those months.
That is correct. But the only reason I paid for the first 2 months because I lived there full time. She threw me out. I had to go move into a whole other place. And we were broken up. We started seeing each other again, and I had a separate residence.
But then you moved back in, even according to you.
Right, okay.
Sir, listen to me. Then you moved back in, at least according to you, for another 2 months on an apartment where you had a lease.
Right.
And you did not pay rent for those 2 months.
Yes, I did.
No, he didn't.
No, you just told me you didn't pay rent for those 2 months. You said you only paid rent for 2 months.
I wasn't living there full time. I was only spending 2 nights out of the week there. I already moved out into a whole other place.
No, Mr. McMahon, now you're making that up as you're going
I am
along. You
not,
just said
Your
to me,
Honor.
you
Oh, I'm
said to
nervous.
me a
Don't-
moment ago, of the year and a half that you were together, you lived there 4 months, but you only paid rents for 2 months out of the 4.
No, while I was there, if I stayed there for a full month, I would pay for half of that month. If I only spent
That's
a
not
couple...
what you just told me.
Well, excuse me, Your Honor. I'm a little confused. It was...
Well, let's not get confused, sir.
But I went and got a separate residence, and then we started dating again. I would spend the weekend over there and then go back during the week to my own residence.
He never got his own residence until after the second time I threw him out. He lived with his father after the first time.
Okay, let's talk about the expenses that you say he owes you, Miss McCarthy. Let me hear.
Well, Your Honor, most of what he has said was correct. He was there May and June. I found he was cheating on me, and I threw him out. We reconciled, and he moved back in October, and he was there October, November, and December, and it was shortly after Christmas, 1998, or maybe even after the first of the year,
That's not
where I
true
threw him
either.
out for the second time. He was coming up with all these excuses why he couldn't help me out with the rent, and never paid anything. The day I threw him out, I went to do some laundry, and he had a bad habit of keeping his papers in his pants. I would check his pockets for papers, and I found a receipt for some car stereo equipment that he purchased the day before.